All right. I wanted my next video to be the walkthrough of my car, but I'm still working on the details, and I don't want to just keep waiting. Like, it'll probably be next week before I can really film the video the way I want to film it. I just want everything to be done, and I mean, I am a bit of a perfectionist, which is not a good thing because when you're a perfectionist, you never finish anything. Um, I'll be working on this thing for as long as it's running. And whatever car I get next, I'll be working on that for years too. It's just the way I am. But the build is beautiful. Wait till y'all see it. But let's talk about the correlation between hardship and adventure. So a lot of people want adventure, they want excitement, but they're not willing to really take any risks for it. So I've got 7 videos explaining why I was homeless. It's more like my life story, and it cuts off pretty abruptly because I got tired of doing it. I could make another multiple videos. I probably will eventually, and maybe eventually I'll just stitch them all together and release the epic saga of why I was homeless. But so Yeah, I've got 7 videos explaining why I was homeless. I could sum it up really in a sentence or two, which is basically I wanted excitement and I wanted adventure. I was tired of sitting in an apartment, smoking weed and playing video games and really doing nothing with my life. The only excitement was going out on the weekends and getting drunk with a bunch of dudes. And I mean, I can't even believe that used to be like something I would look forward to. You couldn't pay me to go out with a bunch of dudes and drink right now. Actually, I'd like to get together with all my old friends and go out and get hammered, sure, but not every weekend. If I'm gonna go out, I'd rather just go out with a girl. That's fun to me now. Um, but yeah, what it came down to was I I just felt there was more to life than just clinging to some job and clinging to some apartment in fear of being homeless. So I decided to just go and, I mean, really, you'd have to watch all the videos to really see how it all happened. But the real adventure started, I mean, really, the real adventure started right when I got evicted. I was living at my friend Shane's house, and he's somewhat of a party animal. So there was always a lot going on in that house. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was kind of fun. And when I have like fond memories when I think back on it, but believe it or not, the fondest memories I have are the darkest, most difficult times. Like the first time I fully ran out of money and didn't know what to do. I like that. Believe it or not, it's not a traumatizing memory. It's a memory that I enjoy thinking about because it was so scary and so difficult. But having made it through it, I'll tell you the story. So I was in Vegas. I could not work. If you've heard the story before, I'm sorry. It's in my Why I Was Homeless videos, but it's a good story. So I had basically pawned everything I owned, and I couldn't get any work. This was like at the height of the financial crisis or whatever. There was still no construction work. I couldn't even work at a labor pool, which is like companies call it like labor ready, or I forget what they're all called, but basically it's these companies that will hire like homeless people and they pay them like, I don't know, $10 an hour, but they get paid like 15 an hour for them, and they rent them out. It's like rent a slave or something. They rent them out to contractors. I remember when I was doing construction in Florida, the laborers would come out, and sometimes you could just tell they were homeless or they were living out of their car, and I would think to myself, like, God, I'm so glad I'm not them. And like, I'd be thinking like, how do they end up in that position? Like I and they were never really good workers, but what can you expect? These people are waking up in a cardboard box and coming out to work, and so I was always pretty cool to them and pretty nice to them, and I would do most of the work because when I worked for the commercial contractor, I was like an assistant superintendent. So whenever there was laborers out on the job, I was like in charge of them. But I would feel for these people, and I knew they didn't know shit about the type of things we were doing. So I would just figure out what they could do, which was usually not a whole lot. But like I said, what can you expect from these people? They're new to all this, so I was always pretty cool to them, and I would do most of the work and have them just kind of help me do it. And my bosses didn't even like that. They'd be like, "Joey, you're supposed to be like bossing them around, not like working with them." Like my bosses were trying to like teach me to be like a boss, which I didn't want to be. I don't like bossing people around. And to be honest, I got more work out of these people with my methods than I would have if I had just been ordering them around and threatening them and shit. I was in the mud with them doing it and showing them, and I think that's the best way to get people to work is to, um, to lead by example. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, I get it. They're in a rough spot. They're living rough lives. They don't know anything about construction, and they're not in the best of shape physically or mentally. So I would just I wasn't going to try to push them, and I knew they weren't getting paid a lot. I was getting paid more than they were, so I felt, you know, that I should be doing the hard shit that we were doing. So, um, anyways, I used to think to myself, I felt bad for them. You know what I mean? It's that simple. I felt bad for them, and next thing I know, I'm living in Vegas. This is life is crazy, bro. You don't know what's gonna happen in your life. It's just, you know what I mean? You don't know. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're on the bottom. Next thing I know, I'm in Vegas, ain't got no money, ain't got nothing. I'm waking up at, I think I was waking up at 4 a.m. to go and be the first one at Labor Ready, which was probably a 10-15 minute walk away from the apartment I was staying in. And I'd get there, I'd be the first one there, and I still wasn't getting no work because I didn't have no car. And there was so little work, so little construction work in Vegas at the time that only a few people were getting sent out every day, and it was usually people with a car because no one had to drive them around. So I did that for 1 week straight. Couldn't believe that my life had been reduced to this. I'm waking up at 4 a.m., walking to this place in the dark, sitting outside on the concrete. God, what a terrible memory. It's a great memory because I'm glad I'm not there anymore, but it was such a hard time for me. And then sitting in this place all day, not getting paid anything to do it, and, you know, just getting nothing out of it. I did that for 1 week. I said, this ain't working. I could show up at 3 a.m. I was in the mindset of like, I was raised by boomers, and I was raised by this, hard work mentality. If you just try hard and you work hard, that's the key. You know what that led to throughout most of my life was being taken advantage of. People would work me to death and then dump me as soon as there was any slight slowdown in work because they knew they could hire 10 more of me. It's nothing. There was people lined up to do what I was doing, which was just mostly unskilled labor until I started learning and getting some tools. But even then, there was the job. It was flooded. And now, what's funny now is I couldn't tell you how many people try to hire me to do construction nowadays, and I'm thinking to myself, where were you people who back then when y'all ran me out of that industry by not being stable enough? Now I got motherfuckers left and right. I got all these jobs. I ain't got no work. I said, well, that's your own fault because 10, 20 years ago, y'all were treating us all like shit and treating us like a dime a dozen. And what happened was 90% of that workforce moved on. They're all on, they're all homeless and on heroin now, probably. But you ain't got them to abuse no more. They're out there doing other things. God knows what they're doing. But now y'all ain't got no workers, and it's your own fault. And I'm glad to be out of the industry. I've got all the tools, and I can go build a house out of the back of this thing. Literally, I got all the tools and enough experience to do it. But I'm just so the other day this guy was like, man, he's like, you want to work today? I'm like, doing what? He's like, cutting these trees back. I was like, no. Like, them days are over for me, buddy. Climbing up roofs and cutting shit back, and what are you gonna pay me to do it? Probably barely shit. So I didn't even let him get to that point. I was like, nah, bro. Like 20 years ago, I would have been chomping at the bit to do that job, just to have any type of work in it. I'm getting off subject. So, but I was raised to think like, oh, just work hard. And so, it, all it really did for me was get me taken advantage of. And someone in the comments the other day was like, I like your videos, but when I see you sweating and battling cockroaches and all this, and why don't you just get a part-time job, buddy? Watch my why I was homeless videos. If you want to know why I don't just get a part-time job, first of all, I don't fucking need one. Second of all, because it didn't work for me. It's, I mean, it just didn't work for me. Hurricanes would come through and wipe me out. That fucking economy collapses. Whatever would happen, it didn't work for me. I never had any stability in life up until pretty recently, thanks to YouTube and Patreon. Thank you to these things. Thank God for these things. I had some stability when I was homeless in New York and doing the portraits, but it's amazing now. My whole frequency is different. To now that I don't have this constant pressure of having to find work, because thank God for YouTube and Patreon. I've got work. I've got people that are interested in the stuff that I'm doing on YouTube and Patreon. Thank God for it. So, um, why would I get a part-time job? I've got 3 jobs. I got 2 YouTube channels and a Patreon. You think I got time to go dig holes for some asshole that's gonna pay me minimum wage or some shit? I'd rather. And here's the other thing. This is my whole point. Yeah, I'd be sweating sometimes. I'm in Florida. It's the summer. Sweating is good for you, first of all. Second of all, I ain't scared of no motherfucking cockroaches, bro. I used to be when I was a little domestic house cat living in a motherfucking box. A roach would get me all scared and shit. I'm not a fan of them. But nowadays, it ain't no roach gonna scare me. I was watching The Revenant on my laptop back here the other night, and the cinematography in that movie is amazing. There's all these woods and shit. I'm sitting there, I'm all into it, and all of a sudden, bam! There's a roach the size of my fist on my computer screen. He must have thought it was the woods. He was trying to fly into the woods, and it freaked me the fuck out. I ain't gonna lie. He climbed to the edge of the laptop. I just backhanded his ass, and I ain't seen him since. But which means I probably slept in the car with a big ass roach. I wouldn't have done that 20 years ago. Nowadays, that shit, it ain't gonna fucking, what's it gonna do to me, bro? Crawl down my throat and make me eat it? Like, they don't bite, they're harmless. It's just an ugly, disgusting thing. But it ain't, I've been through so much shit in my life, you think a fucking roach, I ain't losing no sleep over that, okay? So if I have to, I'll grab the motherfucker and throw it out the door. I don't want to, but I've got my own system for dealing with roaches and shit. Maybe I'll make a video in case anyone wants to know how to catch roaches. But when you're living out on the street and doing the things I do, that's one of the things you got to deal with occasionally is fucking roaches. I mean, you're sleeping on the street in New York City. Sometimes a roach is gonna pop up looking for food and shit. You got to deal with them. In Florida, everyone deals with them, and they're not roaches. They're palmetto bugs. They're 10 times bigger. They can fly, and They're like a nightmare with wings. So if you're scared of that shit, don't come to Florida because they're everywhere. And sooner or later, you're gonna have to deal with them. So at this point in my life, they don't freak me out and shit. But here's my point: if you're gonna live your life scared of every little thing and trying to avoid every little difficulty and hardship, well, you're not gonna have a very exciting life, and that's fine. It's not for everyone. But if you want excitement and you want adventure, these are the things that come with it. Sometimes it ain't pretty. I mean, when all is said and done, I would not trade my position in life for anyone else's. I would like if you offered me $100 billion and a mansion in Malibu. I mean, I guess I would take it, but I'd still be living the same way. I'd be living in a vehicle, traveling around the country and shit because that's what I want to do. So, if I wanted to rent a room somewhere, I would do that. I don't want to do that. I want to travel around this country and experience it and see it and to see all the places I've never seen and do all the things I've never done. And that's what I want to do with my life right now. I don't want to just sit in an apartment and chill. Maybe in a few years, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. That's not what I want to do now. I want some adventure and excitement. I've worked very hard to get to this point where I've got a place to live, even though it's a vehicle. Wait till you see it, though. It's badass. I've got everything in this vehicle that I had in my apartment, except a shower, which I can go to the gym and take a shower whenever I want. So, you know, it's the way I've got this set up. You'll see when I do the video. But anyways, trying to tell the story about when I was in Vegas the first time I ran out of money. So I was planning on telling a few stories in this video, but we're running out of time. So let me at least get this one story out. So the labor pool ain't working. My programming is not working. Up until this point in my life, I'd pretty much always been able to find some job, some asshole to hire me for minimum wage to work me to death, and but my programming was no longer working. I couldn't find some asshole to hire me for minimum wage and work me to death. So I had to get creative. The, uh, to be totally honest, and this is not something I'm proud of, it's something I'm actually ashamed of. My first thought was I did everything I could legally. It's time for me to be a gangster. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start robbing people. This is what I was thinking. And I believe it's growing up listening to rap thinking that this was like the cool, brave way to react to this situation. But so I had um, a nice knife that I had bought earlier in my life, and I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna go stick people up. And I'm walking out on the streets of Vegas, casing the place, looking for targets, and I'm thinking to myself, there's nothing cool or brave about what you're doing. You're looking for someone who's weaker than you to take what they worked for. Um, and if they fight back, you're going to have to hurt them or kill them. And I was thinking to myself, that is so wrong that you can't do that. Like, that is disgusting what you're thinking about doing. Um, and I realized that I was better off. I was thinking to myself, what's going to happen? You're going to starve to death? That's not going to happen. I mean, you're not going to just emaciate and starve to death in Vegas. There's zero chance that happens. So I was thinking to myself, I have no really. It's not like my life is on the line here. I have no right to do this, and it disgusted me. And I just went back to the apartment that night. Didn't eat nothing. Didn't do nothing. Sat there miserable. The Vegas tap water's disgusting. You can't even drink the fucking tap water without boiling it first. So I had to boil myself some tap water. I mean, you probably could drink the tap water. I don't trust it. So I'd boil it as if I was getting it out of a fucking mud puddle or something. And so all I had to eat that day was boiled tap water. And I woke up the next day and said, I am never spending another night like that in my life. And I started thinking, you're not going to go out hurting and killing people and taking what they have. That option is off the table. We're not doing that. So what else can I do? I was thinking, I'm going to have to go out on the street with a cardboard sign and beg. And then I was thinking to myself, now put yourself in my shoes. You have no money. You have no food. You have no nothing. And there's no one you can call to ask for money. I mean, you could if you want to beg and plead. It ain't going to do you no good because when that money runs out, you're going to be right back in this position that you're in right now. So there's no point in begging and pleading. You may as well deal with it right now. I was thinking to myself, what can I do? I'm I'm gonna have to go out with a cardboard sign and beg. I don't want to do it. That's what I have to do. That's what I was thinking. But then I was thinking to myself, I work too hard and sacrifice too much in my life to be out here begging. I can't bring myself to do it. I have to think of something else. I was thinking I was I was very hot on the stand-up comedy scene in Vegas at the time. I was thinking maybe I'll street perform stand-up comedy, but I was too shy to do it. I was thinking, what can I do? I all this pressure and all this shit. I can't just go out on the street and perform right now. I can't. I got too much shit on my mind. So I was thinking, what can I do? I can make a sign that says something to the effect of $1, one joke, money back if you don't laugh, all jokes written by me. Although that's not what the first sign said. The first sign I made said best comedian in Las Vegas, um, $3 for a short set, $5 for a long set. I think that's what the sign said. And I was going to sit there with my sign, and when the people came up, I would do 3 minutes worth of my material for $3 and 5 minutes for $5. That was my plan. And so that's what I went out there with the sign. I was so fucking scared. It's funny, I haven't thought of this in a while, but I was very, very scared out there. I walked around the strip. I went out probably around 10, maybe 10 at night, because I was thinking this is a nighttime thing, you know. And so I go out on the strip, which from the apartment I was living in, which I believe it was on Flamingo in Arville, I think. It was right behind the Palms Casino, the apartments I was in. I would walk to the Rio, which was across Flamingo, and there was a free shuttle that went from the Rio to Harrah's and to the Paris, I think, and then it would go back to the Rio because those three casinos are owned by the Rio. So I left the apartment, I walked to the Rio, I get on the free shuttle, I get to the strip, I got my little sign. It's ugly as yeah, real ugly. It's like cardboard, ugly sign. Too many words written on it too. That's another. If you're ever gonna panhandle or do this type of thing, telling jokes or whatever, the less words, the better. I had this sign as like paragraphs of words explaining that I'm a comedian. It's so stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. You learn though. So I have my sign. It's folded up, and I walk around the strip looking for a spot. And next thing I know, it's like 1 a.m. and I haven't put out my sign or anything. I didn't. I was too like scared. I couldn't do it, and it was. I'm noticing the crowds thinning out on the strip. I'm like, you miss your opportunity, bro. You got to get out here earlier. And if you want to wander around scared for an hour or two, that's fine. But you're gonna have to come out earlier. If, you know, you missed your opportunity tonight. So I went back to the apartment. No food, no cigarettes, no nothing. Tap water. And I wake up the next day and I'm like, never again. I am determined. I don't care if when I put this sign out, a bolt of lightning, I don't care. Someone could chop my head off with a samurai sword. It doesn't matter. Anything is better than doing what I've been doing, which is sitting in that apartment with nothing to eat and nothing to, no cigarettes, no nothing, just sitting there drinking tap water, and you know, I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't do. I was miserable. I couldn't focus or think of anything except I need money. So I'm just sitting there with my tap water, like I need money. So I was like, never again. So the next day, I wake up and I am determined on this day. I go out there probably 6 or 7 p.m. and once again, I wander around till probably about 9 p.m. and I'm like, we're not doing this again. You got to realize, I mean, the last thing on earth that I wanted to do, besides sit in that apartment with nothing but tap water, was sit there with that sign, drawing attention to myself. I'm a very shy and private person. I don't like attention. It's like if you're afraid of spiders, having to pick one up and pet it or something. That type of thing. Like I have like this phobia, you know. And the other thing is with the panhandling, I felt like I was kind of panhandling too. I didn't want to do it. Let's just put it that way. So I wander around till about 9 p.m. and I'm like, you have to do this. So I sit down near Harris. There's a little area there where it's almost like a tunnel with like plants on both sides, and it's almost like hidden but still on the strip. So that's where I sat, and I felt when I opened that sign and sat there, and people were looking at me. uh, I wanted to evaporate. I didn't feel good at all. I didn't like it. I hated it. And I sat there with that sign out for a couple of minutes, and it was like unbearable to me. And I'm thinking, I'm about to just put this thing away. I got to figure something else out. Maybe I'll go back to labor pool. I got to do something. I can't do this. And as I'm sitting there thinking that, this black dude comes walking up, and he looks kind of gangsterish. Man, this video is getting long. And like I say, I've told this story before, so if you've heard it before, I apologize, but it's a good story. So, black dude comes walking up, looking kind of gangsterish. I'm like, thinking he's gonna like talk shit to me or something. I don't know. I was like a deer in the headlights. He walks up. He's like, "What is it? What is that you got going?" And I was like, I do stand up comedy and do a short set for $3." And he's like, all right. He gives me like $3. He's like, do some stand up. I was like, and I go through a couple of minutes of my set, and he's being real supportive. He's like chuckling and being real nice to me, and I'm like, I'm getting more confident as I'm doing it. And the next thing I know, I do it. He gives me the $3, and he's like, that was good. He's like, that was funny. He's like, you got a lot of balls to be out here doing this. And I'm like, he's pumping me up as he's telling me all this shit. I went from feeling about this big to next thing I know, I'm feeling confident. This dude was a fucking angel. I'm not even kidding you. And he was straight Cali gangster. You could tell he wasn't no, like, uh, this dude was out, like, I don't know how to explain it, but let's just say he's probably been through a lot in his life and probably had a lot of steel in his spine and a lot of balls. But I think he sensed the position I was in and he wanted to help for whatever reason. So he blew up, inflated my ego, and he might have even given me more than $3. But he was like, I've never seen nobody do nothing like this, and I think you got a lot of balls to do it, and you should keep doing it. It's something to that effect. And I shit you not, my whole world changed from this dude. This is why like, you know, I'm not going to get into the whole race thing, but this dude helped me out a lot in my life. And he didn't have to. He could have done the opposite and been a dick to me, and I probably would have folded that sign up and evaporated and never tried to do it again. Who knows? God knows what would have happened. But he did the opposite. He helped me out, and he inflated my ego. He made me feel good. He made me feel like I wasn't a beggar or a loser. He made me feel that I was like a performer performing a service, and I didn't feel like embarrassed to do it after that experience with him. And so then he left, and I was feeling pretty good with my sign at that point. And I'm telling you, that shift, that energy shift, that frequency shift, which this dude blessed me with, he brought me from low vibe, scared, embarrassed, not feeling right, to a higher vibe, feeling a little better. At least I'm doing something. At least I got $3 in my pocket. Now I ain't got zero. I'm on my way. My frequency shift attracted more people, I believe. And more people, next thing I know, people are stopping. And I couldn't tell you how many, but I can tell you this much. Within maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, I had 20, $30 in my pocket, which was better money than I would have been making at labor ready, that's for sure. And I was elated. I was ecstatic. I think I hit about $30 and I was like, let me go get something to eat. I'm fucking starving. Let me go get some cigarettes. I ain't had a cigarette in 2 days. So that's what I did. And I went back to that apartment and I felt like I had conquered a giant. I felt like I had conquered a major fear. I gotta say that black dude helped me out. I can't say I did it all on my own. I got to give him his credit because he helped me out. So, you know, call it an angel, call it, God threw him my way, but this is why you really, me personally, I can't, you got to give the credit to God, bro, because that wasn't, that was out of my control. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't up to me. I didn't make, like, that dude just came up and was nice to me and helped me and raised my frequency, whether he meant to or not. That's what he did. And I'll never forget it. It was a moment that I'll never forget. um, because the next day I went out there and I had a way to make money now. I had a way to make a living now. I didn't have to sit there with no food anymore. I didn't have to sit there with no cigarettes anymore. I worried, and at least now I can be proactive. I there's some I can go make money. So I guess that's the only story I'm going to tell here. But the point of this video is now, more than once throughout my life, I've been in messed up positions like that one where I saw no way out. I didn't know what to do. I can tell you one thing. When you Here's the other thing. The reason I had this intuitive feeling deep down beyond what anyone could tell me. This I don't know how to explain it, but when I was working all these regular jobs and shit, I felt it was not meant for me. I was taking the easy path, but it wasn't the right path. But this is the thing that people don't get. They're like, oh, they think I just don't want to work. Dude, working was never an issue for me. I don't like to wake up early, but I like to work all day and feel accomplished working outside. That's what I did. And I come home exhausted from my work. I loved it. It was easy for me. It was never hard for me. You know what I mean? So when people are like, they think I just don't want to work. That is so not the case. It was some feeling in me told me it wasn't right for me. It was easy for me. It might not be easy for everyone, but it was easy for me to wake up at the crack of dawn and go out and do hard labor all day. That was fucking easy for me. It was comfortable. It was easy. It was easy. It was in my comfort zone. I never took days off. My bosses would, at the end of the year, give me like an extra $1,000 because I never took a vacation or anything. So I never called in sick. I You know what I mean? It was not a challenge for me at all. The challenge for me. And so I just had this deep intuitive feeling telling me you need to challenge yourself and stop clinging to this easy life with the jobs and everything. And the external world was reflecting that too. Every time I would get comfortable in life, something would happen. Hurricanes would come through, the financial crisis, something would happen that would force me to uproot. And so, I got tired of that happening. I wanted to figure out ways to rely on myself, and so I decided you're gonna have to deal with some adventures and hardships, which is actually a blessing. And so, the point of this video is you can't have adventure without hardship. The best parts of the story are the hardest times. The best stories I tell are from the times in my life where I wanted to end it all, and I made it through it. So, you know, these things are a blessing. People think it's a curse, it's a blessing. These difficulties, these hard times, when you make it through and you get out the other side of that, you're 10 times the person you were. And I couldn't tell you how many times it's happened to me. I did not mean to make this video this long, but, um, you know, and here's the other thing. When you are in sync with what the universe wants, what God wants, what you deep down want, when you're on the right path, you'll know. And here's another thing that's going to happen. There's going to be hard times. You're going to be tested. There's going to be trials tougher than you can even imagine, probably. But there's going to be some times where you're going to get help from the the most unlikely of places. Where I'm telling you, so you don't know until you. Now, I'm not encouraging everyone to quit their job and go be homeless. What I am encouraging people to do is maybe be open to hardship and adventure. Be open to it. Um, just be open to the fact that life can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be clinging to a job and paying rent. It, that's it's a choice. It doesn't have to be that, and it's a good choice. In this society, in this world, it makes sense. That's what makes sense to do that. So I'm not trying to discourage people from doing that. I tried to do that. It didn't work for me. But for the people who it's not working for, just know there's nothing to be afraid of. And sometimes you got to go with the flow. And if the flow is pushing you out of your comfort zone, go with it. Go ahead and go with it. It's smarter to go with the current. That doesn't mean you throw your oar away and you just let the current run you off a fucking waterfall. What it means is you keep your oar in your hand and you keep directing where you're trying to go, but you don't go against the current. You go with it. You know what I mean? You go whichever way the current's taking. So I think this video ended up being pretty good. Let me watch it. I did not mean to make it this long, but it is what it is. I appreciate every single one of y'all. I appreciate all the new subs. Thanks, algorithm, for sending all these people my way, and thank you for subbing my channel. I I appreciate you. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the likes. And thanks for the people throw me tips sometimes. I'm not saying you should, but when people do, I appreciate it. Some people send me $1. I appreciate it. Thank you. Um, and so, yeah, thanks to the Patreons. I had a run in with one of my Patreons recently. Buddy, you can't expect me to drop what I'm doing and respond to every comment when you put in 50 comments a day. Like, dude, I can't even find your comment. Like, like I try to respond to all the comments on Patreon, but every once in a while, I'll get some new Patreon who is kind of excited about the information they're getting. I understand it's interesting stuff, and they'll start commenting all the time on videos I put up a year ago and everything in between. and then they erase comments and they put them in other places. So I get 100 notifications. I go to look at the comment and it's not there, and you know what I mean. So don't take it personally, but I can't respond to 50 comments a day, especially when you're erasing them and shit. Here's the thing: if you really want a response, make one comment on the newest video. I will see it. I will respond to it at some point within a couple of days of it being there. You just can't flood me like that because then I don't know what is what and I can't see. You know what I mean? I can't keep track of it. So, I mean, I got a little upset with this dude in the inbox, but it is what it is, bro. Like, you can't expect me to respond 24/7. I got a lot of shit going on right now. Anyways, but I do appreciate all the Patreons, especially the ones who have been there from the beginning and they get it. They don't flood me with comments and then get all upset when I don't respond to 100 comments. It's like it, I really appreciate my Patreons. Anyways, so I guess that's the end of this video. Hopefully you got something out of it. And hopefully my next video I will show y'all the walkthrough on my car. Let me give you a quick preview back there. Yeah, you can see some of it. Can you see my storage in there? I don't know. But anyways, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good one.